I'm Jackie Flavin, Customer Insights Leader with Demco, and this is Open Book, our weekly conversation series with industry experts about COVID-19 challenges. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Henry Mahncke, CEO with Posit Science. He has a PhD in neuroscience, and he's probably one of the smartest people that we've chatted with on this webcast. He has a lot of really interesting things to share about brain health, and so I'm so glad that he's here today as our guest.
It's really a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Yes, thank you. So just a little bit of background. Could you share a little bit about Posit Science and BrainHQ?
Sure. So Posit Science is a brain health company. You know, our background is that we spun out of the University of California, San Francisco a number of years ago. And the reason this company got founded is, you know, there's been an absolute revolution in how we think about brain science over the past 30 years. You know, if we were to wind back the clock and ask neuroscientists, let's say in 1970, how does the brain work? Every neuroscientist would have said the same thing. The brain's like a computer chip inside your head, right? It's got wires and they carry electricity and it processes information. But when we think about the brain like a computer chip, that leads us to some wrong ways of thinking, right? We used to think that the brain just wore out as we got older and there was nothing to be done about it. And we used to think that if the brain got a little bit damaged, let's say you had a concussion, then hey, probably couldn't be fixed. But a revolution happened, and that revolution was the idea that the brain is not fixed in its wiring. It's constantly reorganizing and changing itself in response to what we do and what we ask it to learn. And so Posit Science was founded by a scientist at UCSF and is actually my PhD advisor. And I remember he called me up one day and he said, Henry, we've helped a lot of rats improve their brain health. We've helped a lot of monkeys improve their brain health. Probably time to help some people. And so that's what we did. We took that science of brain plasticity, brain change, and we took it out of the lab and we're taking it into the world with real brain exercises that people can use to improve their brain health.
Very cool. And what does BrainHQ look like?
Yeah, so BrainHQ is our brain training program. So, you know, runs in the web. You can use it on a web browser or on your phone or your tablet. And fundamentally, it's a set of brain exercises based on the science of brain change. And the way the brain exercises work is that, you know, there's more than 24 of them, but they're all designed to make your brain faster and more accurate in various different ways. Because by making a brain faster and more accurate, we can help improve things like memory and attention and decision making. And also we can just make the brain itself a biologically more healthy system, right? In the same way that you can improve your heart health or your liver health by doing the right things, you can actually improve your brain health by doing the right things with your brain.
Very, very cool, especially these days. It's more challenging than ever to keep ourselves healthy during the pandemic. What are some of the effects you're seeing of the pandemic on people's brain health?
So, you know, interestingly, being in the pandemic where we have to stay home and we're removed from so much of the activity and the cognitive stimulation that we normally get, you know, that's actually bad for brain health. And in some ways, it's as bad for brain health as just the normal process of aging. And, you know, what I mean by that is, you know, the brain is designed to learn, right? That's why we have brains, so that we can learn new things and we can change our behavior. And that means that what keeps the brain healthy is continuous learning and continuous stimulation. And we already know that, hey, as a result of aging, one of the reasons that brain health starts to slowly get worse during aging is that, you know, for a variety of reasons, we move out of a learning environment, right? We've, you know, done all the things we're going to do, right? And that's why BrainHQ helps people with cognitive function, improves it during aging. But, you know, when you're in quarantine, some of these same things are true, right? Many of us are working less if we're lucky to be working at all. Even if we're still working, we're working in a very different way. If you're a person who used to be out volunteering in your community a lot, you know, that's been taken away from you. And all that new learning has been removed from the brain. And, you know, what it means is, well, the brain doesn't have to work as hard as it used to. The brain starts to, you know, get a little flabby, if I can put it that way. In the same way that when we're home, if we're just sitting on our couch watching Netflix all the time, our physical health is no longer as good. You know, if we're at home sitting on our couch watching Netflix all the time, our brain health is not as good either. The same things all come into play, and they're really primarily around removing that stimulation and that new learning that we're accustomed to getting.
Interesting. How is this might be a dumb question, but how is our physical health to our mental brain health?
How is our physical brain health and our mental brain health related? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of times when people think about the brain, they have this very kind of almost ethereal viewpoint, a psychological viewpoint. It's our soul, it's our spirit, it's our self. And we think about it in this very nebulous and spiritual way. And those are great ways to think about yourself, without a doubt. But as a neuroscientist, in the end, the brain is it is a mushy organ that lives inside your skull. And, it can be healthier or unhealthier depending upon how you treat it. And in fact, brain health and bodily health are really quite related. So for example, we know that the things that people do to take care of their heart health, like get good exercise, you've probably heard of like the Mediterranean diet for heart health. Amazingly, those things actually relate directly to brain health as well. By keeping your heart healthier, if you lower your blood pressure, for example, you'll do less damage to your brain as you get older, and so your brain will be healthier. So we know that these things have a very deep relationship in that way. And that's probably one of the most important things to just know is the brain is part of the body, and we need to treat it like part of the body to keep it healthy, even during tough times when we're all stuck at home.
Yeah. If people are feeling, like I think for a lot of us, we can say, yeah, I'm not my best, physical self. And I know my brain health is not well. What are some things we can do during the pandemic to just boost our health?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things right off the bat. So one easy one to start with is actual physical exercise. We know that physical exercise contributes to physical health, but it also contributes to brain health. Being out and walking around, getting your heart rate up, it actually releases growth factors in your brain that directly contribute to brain rewiring and brain health. So we're all allowed to go out and walk around, even though we're stuck at home. And we should be doing it anyway. But one other good reason to do it is brain health. A second thing that people should think about is, hey, how can I keep learning? How can I keep driving new learning while I'm at home, even though I am stuck at home a bit? And there's a few things people can do. So one of which is, hey, maybe there's a hobby that you've always wanted to start or that you can get back to that you haven't had the chance to do because you've been commuting to work all those years. So, maybe it's time to pull that guitar out of the closet if it's been sitting there for a long time. If you've never done a jigsaw puzzle, like maybe now's the time to pick something up like that. And because that new learning, even though it's hard, right? Maybe you're never going to become a great guitar player. Maybe you're never going to do a 5,000 purse jigsaw puzzle. Maybe you're going to pick up a language learning app, but maybe you're never going to become fluent in French. That's okay. It's that learning, it's that work that you're doing with your brain that contributes to brain health. And of course, at my company, Posit Science, we make a brain training program called BrainHQ, as we talked about. And BrainHQ is a great thing to pick up and try during these times when we're stuck at home. It's the same way that you might say, hey, I'm going to make sure I go out for a walk for 30 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week. You can say, hey, I'm going to make sure I do some brain training, 30 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week. Keep my brain fast and sharp, even during these tough times.
Yeah, it would be great if we could think of that as self-care, and we got to take care of ourselves in so many ways, and the brain is essential. And I think it's so fascinating, like we can heal our brains, like whatever regressions we've had during the pandemic, we can rewire our brain essentially, right?
Yeah, it is actually such an amazing thing to first realize and then really think through the implications, right? When you really start to get your head around the idea that your brain can constantly change in response to what you ask it to do. And if you ask it to do things that require it to have new learning and get faster and sharper, you have a healthier brain. And if you ask it to do, well, not much of anything, then it's going to get worse. That's actually an incredibly empowering idea. I think many people have the wrong idea about their brains. They think that, hey, wherever my brain is right now, I was just born this way, right? I'm not good at math. I can't remember people's names and faces. I've never been able to write well. I have a hard time reading a whole book, right? These are all things that we can change. And that's incredibly exciting. And I'm not here to, if you've had anything like that, I'm not here to, give you a hard time for that. I'm here to hopefully create and open a door and say, hey, you can rewire your brain. Now, we know this from the body, right? If you're the kind of person who's never been able to run 2 miles, I think all of us know that if you worked on that for a year, you'd be able to run 2 miles, right? We know we can rebuild our body in the way we want to with a certain degree of effort and work and so forth. And it's really now that we're realizing that the brain is the same way, that we can sharpen our brain, that we can maintain or improve our cognitive function exactly like that. And that is an incredibly exciting moment, I think, in terms of how we think about people and frankly, how we think about the human species and where we could be going.
Wow, that is so cool. And what age groups do you see like needing this the most? I mean, I'm sure all do, but is there, should we focus brain health efforts on children, adults, older people? Is there any group in particular that needs it?
Well, I'll answer your question with a question. What age would you say is the age that people are most in need of physical health, physical activity? And the answer, I'll just help you out, is actually all ages, right?
Okay.
We would never say that teenagers don't need physical activity. Of course they do, right? We would never say that kids don't need it, but we would never say that 80-year-olds don't need physical activity. It is important at every stage of your life to engage in the right kind of physical activity to give you good physical health. I think we're now really beginning to realize that the same thing is true for brain health. And, some of that is re-understanding some aspects of how our society already works, right? Kids get a lot of new learning, right? It's illegal for them not to go to school. They go to school, right? And in fact, young adults get a lot of new learning automatically too, right? Maybe you finish school and you take a job, or you move to a new city and you make friends, right? All these things are driving new learning. It's only as we start to get into middle age, I would say, and then certainly as we get older, that some of that automatic new learning, just because of our life history, starts to go away, right? You might be 50 years old and have had the same job for 20 years, right? You might retire at the age of 65 and, you don't have anything to get you out of the house anymore. So because those things start to happen, inadvertently, I guess is how I'd put it, as we get older, then it's appropriate to say, hey, what should I be doing to keep new learning and drive brain health? But I think it's equally true that as we look at kids in school or young adults, we should be thinking about the environment that people live in and making sure that it's a learning environment. In some situations that might involve explicit brain training programs like we do with BrainHQ. But in other cases, I think it's just realizing and thinking through, for example, hey, so you're supposed to be learning in school, but is the way we organize high school, is that really optimal for learning? And we should be thinking around not just, are we learning the right facts so kids can take an AP test, but are we creating the right learning environment to build them healthy brains so that they, they have strong, vibrant brains throughout their lives?
Right.
And actually, just on that topic a bit more, we talk about brain health and, implicitly, I've probably been talking about things like memory and attention and decision making, what we call cognitive skills. But brain health has a huge part of mental health as well, right? If we look at stress or anxiety or depressive symptoms, all of these things have reasons they happen because of circumstances in the outside world, but they also have reasons they happen because of brain health. Take depression, for example. We know that depression is related to poor cognitive function. People have worse memory, worse thinking, worse attention. We also know that it's probably related to a lack of new learning, that probably one of the things that gets people in depressive spirals is their brain is not able to change adequately. And so they can't break out of whatever behaviors they're in that are reinforcing. So I think we think about brain health holistically in this way across the lifespan. We can see that if we can organize our lives and the things we do with our brains right, not only are we going to be sharper and faster and have better memories, but we're probably going to have more resistance to stress and anxiety and depression and things of that nature, which is exciting.
Yeah. How important is sleep to the whole?
Yeah, sleep's incredibly important. And you see me give that little laugh because, of course, we have such an unhealthy culture of sleep in America, right? I work in San Francisco, I work at a startup company, and, you just meet people all the time who brag about, oh, I get by on 4 hours of sleep a night. I'm so productive, right? I pulled 2 all-nighters in a row to get this done. it's just all crazy. It's just all absolutely crazy from a brain health perspective. And it's because we think that while we're asleep, we're wasting time, right? We're not writing a new book, or we're not, reading the newspaper, or we're not working. So we think, oh, that's just wasted time. I want to eliminate it. But of course, it's not wasted time from a brain health perspective. Your brain's doing all kinds of things when you sleep. One thing that your brain does is it actually rehearses kind of at hyper speed everything you've learned during the day that you want to remember.
Wow.
These beautiful experiments done at MIT in rats, and you teach a rat to run a maze, and it sort of learns the maze during the day. And then when you look at brain activity at night, the rat is running the maze in its sleep at like fast forward paces.
Wow.
And so when it comes back the next day, it knows how the maze work. We know from people that if you're practicing new skills and you get interrupted sleep, you actually don't get better at the skills. We think of ourselves as learning during the day when we practice, but actually the learning's happening at night when your brain. And the other thing that happens while your brain, it is amazing. The other thing that happens when your brain sleeps is it actually cleans out all of your brain fluid. Your brain's floating in this kind of slight salty bathwater called cerebrospinal fluid. And while you sleep, it actually gets fully cleaned, so that when you wake up the next day, you're starting with a nice, fresh, clean set of salt water for your brain to float in. And that's important too. So yeah, people stop bragging about not getting any sleep. It's not, it's not healthy for people around you.
Yeah. That's fascinating. This is like, I could talk to you forever, and I'm so proud of myself. I love to ask. I've got a big imagination, a lot of curiosity. So I'm known for going off on random paths with people, and I'm so proud of myself for staying on top. You're so smart.
Sign of a very healthy brain, I would say, to have all that curiosity and all that new learning. More people should be like you, I think.
But I know my colleagues are going to be proud that I stayed on topic with you. So I'm glad for that. This is just so wonderful. And it's kind of meta to say, but I feel like I've learned so much. So this has been a good brain health session for me. So thank you.
Make you get a good night's sleep tonight so you can remember it tomorrow.
Yes. The work you guys are doing is just incredible. And I'm so glad that that BrainHQ is available to people, during this pandemic. I've noticed that people have been playing more games on their phones and whatnot. So it's probably good to think about if that is really a brain health game,
first of all, we're incredibly proud of the work we're doing with you and your team at Demco. I mean, the fact that BrainHQ is available through more than 250 public libraries across the country is incredibly exciting to us, because it means that, finances are not an obstacle. You can go and check BrainHQ out from your public library just like you do a book. And I just think that's fantastic from an accessibility perspective. When we founded the company, we knew this revolution in brain health could help touch just about every person's life. And being part of the public library system, thanks to our work with Demco, is incredibly important to our mission in that way. And what we've seen over the pandemic is we've absolutely seen our usage level goes up. We see that the average person is doing about 35 or 40% more brain training levels per week than they were last year. And I think that speaks to the fact that, first of all, people do have some more time because they're at home, but it also speaks to, as you were saying earlier, people are thinking about, how do I stay healthy while I'm at home? And of course, mental health and brain health is an incredibly important part of that. So
good. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, and we'll be doing a webinar, I think it's later in January. So looking forward to that. Yeah, enjoy your holiday break, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Well, thank you for setting this up. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Take care.